Today I'm going to be introducing you to another Powertex product called Easy Structure. This is considered a structure paste or a texture paste. It's versatile, white. It's designed specifically to add texture and depth to your projects. It doesn't really matter. You can use it for sculpture, mixed media, canvas, on canvas, any substrate really, except for most plastics. Now, you can use it on a plastic if you cover that plastic with like masking tape, or you take a sander to it and give it some tooth so that this has something to adhere to. I would definitely first test that before you do a final project doing that method. It really provides a very strong base for building a dimension, and you can use it along with Powertex's universal medium. It would then render your creation waterproof, allowing for durable outdoor display if you use it along with the universal mediums. I've used it, I have mixed in crystal glitter with the Easy Structure and made a sparkly snow that on some of my projects, my winter projects for the holidays, and it turned out fantastic. So I highly suggest that you play with this. It comes in two sizes. This is the 1 pound tub, but it runs, as of this filming, it runs $20.95 for 1 pound, and it comes in also in a 2.58 pound tub, and that runs $44.95. So today I thought what we do is actually apply this through a stencil. I've been meaning to make some little images, dimensional type images out of these mushrooms. This is a new stencil I have in my shop, Mini Whimsical Shrooms, and I've been wanting to do this, and so this is an opportunity for us to play a little bit with the Easy Structure, to show you some of the things you can do with it. I am going to be applying different sprays onto it, both dry and wet, so you can see the difference of what happens when you do it on a dry Easy Structure versus a wet Easy Structure. First thing I'm doing is applying it to these pieces of mixed media card through the stencil on only the ones that I need to have dry. The neat thing about this is you can build up depth. It's pretty thick. I liken it to a paste, to a modeling paste. I just feel like it is smoother than a modeling paste almost. Depends on the brand too. And I like to get it really thick and add some texture and then lift. So I get a really in-depth image. Get rid of that excess. Something I do notice, it does dry fairly quickly, so I like to get it down and get my stencil into water. Okay, those are, I've set aside to dry. I am going to take my stencil and get it cleaned up for the next round, and what we'll do is we'll put the Easy Structure down and then use the spray on it while it's wet, and then repeat that. Okay, so the first spray I'm going to test are the Powertex Bisters. I have this one in brown and I have this one in red. The red one I created from the Bister pigment powder. So this is the dry one, and I'm going to go over this dry one with the red Bister, and then we'll do the wet one. Do the next one in the brown. So we're going to let those dry and go on to the next one. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing. This time we're going to use a power color, and this one I've mixed. It's the Mocha Power Color, and I've mixed it with the Powertex. We're going to do the dry one. Alright, so these are what we have so far. These were the dry and these were the wet. This is the Bister, which is the walnut ink with pigment, and this is just the pigment or power color. And I really don't see much different. So that got me thinking, is maybe what we need to try is a standalone sample, just wet, using the Easy Structure and mixing it with the Powertex Universal Medium. In this case, I'm going to use the green, which is my favorite. So I'm going to try to pour just a smidgen of the Universal Medium, and that's already mixed up. I already shook it and stirred it and everything. If you haven't seen the video all about the Universal Medium, I will link that up there for you. And even though the Easy Structure really lightens the color of the Universal Medium up, I don't want to put too much of that Universal Medium because I want to keep that thickness. And the Universal Medium will make this waterproof if that's something you're considering, especially if you have a sculpture you're creating for outdoors. I love how when I put that extra Universal Medium over the top before I pulled the stencil, how the coloration turned out. That's really neat. All right, I'm going to set this aside to dry, and I'm going to go get my stencil cleaned off, and I'll be right back, and we'll move on with our other experiment while we let this dry. All right, while that's drying, I want to take one of our dry samples and try the alcohol ink spray just on the dry one. I want to see if it is pulled in and absorbed into the Easy Structure. Now that is very curious. Immediately you can start to see it pulling the color into the Easy Structure. And alcohol inks, I find that it's really good. I really enjoy making these alcohol inks because I can really test and see how that alcohol will react with other products. And I find it very enlightening, some of the coloring techniques that can be had by these. And if you want to see how I made this, I'll link it up in the upper right hand corner. And the concentration has reduced since it's dried. And interesting enough, you can see the image on the back where those mushrooms are. So that's interesting. That's alcohol ink. Alcohol ink on the dry. Now I need to try the wet because curiosity has me totally pulled into that one. I'm going to use a different color. I'm going to come in with the cinnamon and a little bit of the caramel. Okay, I'm going to set this one aside to dry as well. All right, so I want to try both the Distress Spray Stain and the Distress Oxide on these and see what we get. So I have the dry, and we'll do one for the wet. And I will have all the products listed down below. So this is the Brushed Corduroy Distress Spray Stain on the wet. Oh, it kind of repelled it. Huh. Let's see what it's on the dry. I like the effect that's happening. We'll have to see how this dries. I'm going to let that dry naturally. Okay, so we're going to do the oxide spray. Actually, let's use the bundled sage. So it's repelling it similarly to how it did initially on these, but if you can see, this is the dry one. It is soaking up that color, but the wet one is not. And then I'm going to come in with this one with the frayed burlap. Okay, I'm going to let all these dry. All right, so let's take a look. This is the bister, and this was it wet and dry, and this really did start to soak up some of the bister when it was wet. It kind of in areas here, it soaked it up, but not all the areas. It's kind of a nice effect here. The next we did was the Power Color. This was the dry, and this was the wet. I think it soaked it up more on the edges here than it did here. It seemed to repel it a little bit. Again, kind of the spotted that we had here on the dry, we kind of got some of that here on the wet with the Power Color. So again, interesting. Not much of a difference. This is the alcohol inks. This is the dry, right? Yeah, dry. And at first, it looked like it was soaking it in to the easy structure. But then as it dried, it didn't. So it's mostly into the paper. And then this we got some interesting, it seemed to soak it up a little bit more. This was thinner, this was thicker. And that may have had something to do with how much it soaked up in here. But that was the alcohol ink. And then we did the Easy Structure mixed with the green universal medium, and I love this. I love how that ended up turning out with where I rubbed some of it over the top before I pulled the stencil with the 100% of the green universal medium. And then we did the Distress Spray Stain in the wet and in the dry, and the dry really soaked up that spray stain. I kind of like it better on the wet. I think I'll end up saving some of these just as reference points so I know when applying color. But I really thought this was cool how this looked. And that was on the wet. And then finally we did the Distress Spray Stain. And this was the dry, and it really pulled in the oxide effect on this dry, which I thought was really interesting. And on the wet, it almost repelled it, but we got definitely different colors coming out from the Distress Oxide spray. So, oh, no, I didn't, because this was a different color. So this I had used the frayed burlap, and this was the sage. So that's why we get yellows here and browns here. But we did have some of it repel off of the wet and did not really get a lot of that here. It just pulled in different colors from that frayed burlap, the browns. So I hope this has been helpful for you to learn a little bit more about easy structure and how this might benefit you in your art practice. And yeah, so thank you for coming in. I will, of course, have all the products listed down below in the description box, as well as any videos I might be able to find or classes online regarding the easy structure.